Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at Immortals Inc. YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Your support is what makes this channel possible and keeps us going. It would mean a lot to us and really support the channel by clicking the subscribe, like, or notification bell.
Yeah.
If you are impressed by what you see and want to support us even more, check out our Patreon.
Yes.
With Patreon, you get early access to our YouTube shorts, behind-the-scenes information, how we work, and direct contact with the store owners and creators.
Yes.
A link is in the description. Hope to see you in the comments and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to Immortals Inc. Podcast. I'm Carlos. I got Mikey here on the keyboard.
I am Mike.
And we have Travis still. Well, not still. I mean, broke the fourth wall. Oh, no, he did more than one
Fourth
at a time.
wall? What?
But we were just talking about, subject came up about Satanic Panic of the 80s.
80s.
And D&D. And we were talking about how that was like almost the end of D&D or whatever, right?
And
Probably not.
I've heard of this before.
And we asked Mikey, who's young, if he heard about Satanic
I've heard of it. And then when you started kind of giving a premise of it, I was like, wait, we're going to save it. So now the floor is yours.
Because when D&D started, I mean, Travis will give the whole story of like how it got drug into this thing where all the church, like a lot of church groups and people decided that Dungeons and Dragons was Satan worship and it was killing children and making them do evil things. And you're like, I mean, I played D&D in the 80s and stuff. I'm like, I never saw it. I learned how to play in church. We were playing in church. It was like a church group event. Hey, want to play D&D? Okay. You know,
Quick, let's sneak over here. And
that's not like it ever was. But Travis, I mean, I know you probably tell the story more deep than I do. I know there's the basics of it, but go ahead. Bring us to the...
Bring us to the 80s.
How did D&D... Yeah, bring us back to the 80s.
I think it might have been 79. I'd have to check, but...
I think you're right.
There was a student at University of Michigan named James Dallas Egbert, and he disappeared off the campus. So his mother hired a private investigator to look into it, and the investigator said to the journalists who were swarming about the story that he had been playing Dungeons and Dragons and that this had some sort of, he associated it with some sort of cult activity and Satanism, and he wouldn't be surprised if that was why he disappeared, what happened to him. And the journalists took that piece of that statement and blew it up into
that nugget.
Yeah. And then, blew it up into this story about how this game was causing children to do terrible things to themselves. But it turned up, the kid turned up in, I think, Louisiana. And the game had absolutely nothing to do with what happened to him. But it was out there in the world, and boom, it exploded. And this was also in a period of time when heavy metal music was becoming very popular, and a lot of the music had this sort of occult connections.
A lot of it has some direct,
and there were some dark themes and a lot of this sort of stuff.
There was
going
direct.
on.
Come on, Trav.
No.
There was direct ties to.
No.
Come on
Nope.
now.
A lot of it was just the theater.
I know it was, but you could see why. Like,
right.
when you pick up an album cover and there's a big
Right.
devil behind him like this.
Yes.
Okay, maybe it has something, but yeah, it was mostly theatrical
so
stuff.
a lot of these. So there was this big panic that wasn't just role playing games. It was D&D in particular. And so then there was a 60 Minutes TV show, which isn't probably very well known to the younger crowd these days.
I know 60 Minutes, so
60 Minutes.
Guys.
And you can actually go on YouTube and see the episode. It's awful. Where they went to Lake Geneva and interviewed Gary Gygax and asked him, "Do you this?" He's like, "Well, this is a game of imagination." And complete, but the way they twisted it and turned it, is it a dark sorcery?
Are you Satan?
Are you sure?
Are you Lucifer?
It seems very Satan-y to me.
I think when they superimposed the flames and the horns on them, that was too much. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Did they video shop horns on them? No, it was too early. It was like the 80s, right?
Yeah.
They just threw them
So
on.
there was this, and then there became this organization called Bad Bothered about Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons.
I have.
Was it 2Ds?
Yes.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. I mean, it was just
I have their book.
crazy.
They put that book out. I have it
Yeah.
at home. The actual like pamphlet-sized book.
Yeah, and it was just unhinged from reality.
She made some good points in there. I read it and my brain melted a little. But yeah, I read it. It's pretty funny.
And so
Not funny, but
but here's the funny thing about it. Dungeons and Dragons probably would have never been nearly as popular as it was without that happening. When that happened, because us Gen Xers were like, oh, something is dangerous? Let me have a whole lot of that. So
pretty much.
It flew off the shelves. The game absolutely exploded in popularity because all these adults were saying, "Oh, this is dangerous. This is evil. This is Satan." And 15-year-old kids who were letting themselves into the house every day and hanging out with their friends, smoking weed and listening to Ozzy. We're like, oh, let me have some of that.
I know. I can still remember trying to get the box set when I was young. Like, you never had it. You couldn't find it. It was hard to find. Even then because of the printing.
Yep. Yeah, and there was a whole bunch of like congressional hearings about Satan worship, and the FBI put out bulletins about it. It was just nuts. So if you watched Stranger Things, the last season of Stranger Things,
that's where it's from.
And you had Eddie, that was a real thing. That wasn't just a thing that that they wrote a story for. That there were kids that were into heavy metal, playing D&D, and all the other normies in town would treat you like you were some kind of psycho. I mean, when I first started playing D&D in 1980 something, that was the way some of us were treated. And you would have people ask you, "Are you a Satanist?" And it was difficult to be into D&D and heavy metal the way I am, and horror movies and all that sort of stuff, because you were it was social suicide in high school to be into all three of those things at once, or you had your own little group of weirdos that you were a part of, and so the Satanic Panic was a real thing, and it caused a lot of people a lot of real stress and misery.
I don't remember like that part of it. I remember it was, but I remember I was playing D&D, and then I was just kind of like whatever. And then when isn't that? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
right?
Because to me, I didn't understand why that would thing, but I could see from there, I could see like somebody who has no concept of a role playing game or any imagination, or that's just totally foreign to them, freaking out without, and it would just be not knowing, or just I don't know, I say ignorance, but like ignorance of the game.
Yeah, lack of knowledge.
D&D was new. It was a completely new thing.
So it's like, it's just an adventure. It's like watching a movie, and you're just part of the movie. And I think a lot of it was like the reporter, and I can remember that, man. I can remember that private detective, and he's a classic. That would have been the classic.
Oh, he was a grifter.
Yeah, just I want attention, and I'm going to say something crazy, and it just to see it, you're like, especially in hindsight now, because you could say, well, he's a private detective, he must know something. Yep. No, you don't. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and that was a period of time in American culture where a guy with a suit and a certain kind of haircut showing up on the news is given a little more authority and has a little more gravitas, because like, oh, he's talking in this sort of authoritative way.
Plus all the attention's on him. You know what I'm saying? If that's what they're telling you, oh, that's what it is, and you're like, well, it's not. It's not. And I was it's just for fun, you know.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, I remember the part I remember is like, well, there's devils and demons in it, and I was always like, well, those are the bad guys. You know, you can't have a heroic player without a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? So if demons and devils and all this all this evil is what is bad, then your hero has to fight it. You know, so you can't just have like, I don't know, you know, a teddy bear is your enemy. You know, it's like, how dare you? You know.
It's like, when did Hellraiser 1 come out?
Yeah, I can remember it, but they had the books, and I have the pamphlet. It's like a purple book, and it says what to do.
Something like that.
I got it at home.
But there was a film that Tom Hanks was in called Mazes and Monsters or something like that.
It was terrible.
It was awful. It was like an awful like B flick. It was one of his earliest films, and it was. It was
maybe a walk down, like, I don't know. I don't even know what they were trying to portray in it. Mental illness or just
something.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, because it wasn't like for real.
No.
Monsters in the sewer or something. Like, I could have bought that more, but you know.
Yeah.
Probably are some monsters in the sewer, but and then they remember the little pamphlets.
Yes.
The church would put
Chick
out.
Tracks.
The Chick Tracks, is it?
Yeah, Jack Chick. He has this little publishing company that makes these little comic book pamphlets telling you how Satan is trying to tempt you, and
it's always funny because the one I have, I thought it wasn't here, but the one I have is like some guy or a girl getting dragged into this D&D game, and all the girls are drawn like, for lack of a better word, like 80s Playboy models.
Yes.
And you're like hot. Reading this book like, oh, don't do it. Oh my God, you're going to get into a life of sin. And you're like, wait a minute. You know, as a 15-year-old boy, these girls playing D&D. You know, where do I sign up? You know?
What are they doing?
Like maybe not the best choice for artist and message combination on that one.
Yeah.
But if you ever see them, they're pretty funny. I think they still print them.
Yeah, there you can find them online. Somebody actually made an adventure and kickstarted an adventure.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
They did
based off that track. It was hilarious.
They didn't. I mean,
so would D&D be where it is today without that exposure from the early 80s?
I don't think as much. I think it would have built its way up.
I think it might have. I mean, it's hard to say that something else might not have caused it to become as popular.
Right.
I think,
because over time it's just been a slippery slope.
And, you know, I've seen there's been some of the sales figures that have come out. There was a book that came out like last year where they did about the business of D&D, and it was definitely, there was a spike in sales. Now it did taper off quite a bit in the around 85, 86. There was significant tapering. There was also some just dumb business moves that TSR made.
I believe that might have been more of a.
I think that was more of an issue.
More of the issue.
Was dumb business moves, but there was definitely a sales drop off after a few years where it was like, oh, this is just math.
Yeah, I know.
This is nerd stuff with math.
Every game here is just math, people. Okay,
pretty much.
And I think it would have been popular, but I think that gave it a free advertising.
Yeah, it certainly.
I think it would have grown. I think it would have grown naturally.
And if you look at some of the other pop culture that came out during that period of time, there was Conan the Barbarian, which was very popular. There was a bunch of like horrible knockoff sword and sorcery films. Hawk the Slayer, Beastmaster.
You ever see Beastmaster? If you had HBO in the 80s, you watched it like 30 times.
Yeah.
And man, when did Conan
Deathstalker.
When did Conan come out? Man,
was that 82, because last year was the 40th anniversary, and they did a couple screenings of it in theaters last year.
Funny story is my dad wanted to go see Conan, and I was only 12.
And
it was back when it was, rated R was rated R. You ain't getting in. And we walk up there, and I can still remember the guy. Sir, this is a rated R movie. And he goes, "Oh, 2 tickets." He goes, "I said it was rated R." He says, I said 2 tickets. I just remember the guy's like, okay. Then I'm in there. I'm like, what's the big deal? And then I'm watching it at the time. When you're 12, you're like, oh my God. This
Great
is
time.
epic. But it was nothing, in hindsight, it was nothing horrible. I mean, there's some violence and maybe a little bit of sex, but
That was the start of it all right there for you.
but it's Conan. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan. I mean,
Well, and then you could also walk into the all the grocery stores and drugstores would have the spinny racks with the, $1 or $2 trade paperback novels, and there was always a Conan book.
Oh, yeah, they're all
and
there
those were
anyway, yeah.
everywhere.
you could
so
read them.
that's-
You could read
so-
worse,
Yeah, so there was a
could-
lot. So D&D might have
You could have.
still managed to do okay because of all that stuff at the time that was very popular.
You could have walked in, bought your Conan book, bought your cigarettes, probably bought some fake candy cigarettes to cover up your real cigarettes, and walk out at 12 years old. Nobody would have
Those were
said
the
anything.
days.
Yeah.
What a
Those were the
time.
days.
You need a carton there, young man? Hey, give me a bottle of Jack, too, while you're at it. You got to take the edge off it.
Somebody help this young man out.
But, yeah. But that was our Satanic Panic. It was a little history for you.
Yeah, it was
there.
nice. That was
I mean,
nice.
there's a lot more to it. Like
There's a lot
there's a lot to it.
there's a
but-
lot to leave with you guys. I mean,
But in the end, it was some guy. I mean, who you said? I can't remember his name.
James Egbert Dallas III, I think his name was.
Okay,
something
I
like
believe
that.
you. And he just had a problem. He disappeared. Some private eye decided he was going to find the Satan cults, and went on 2020, which was like the only extra news channel at the time, or extra news program. Everything else, it was just bizarre. You look back at it now, and it's bizarre that world, but
Yes,
it
was.
It's cutting edge at the time.
It was.
All right, guys, thanks. If you like this content, go ahead and like, subscribe, follow. Check us out all on our social medias, and see you next time.
we'll leave you with that.